The chapel fell as silent as a library when my mother's voice pierced through the air. "You changed your name." It wasn't surprise, but rather a judgment in her tone that made every head swivel. My father gripped the program tightly, knuckles whitening. My brother halted his laughter at the doorway. I slipped into the second row, clutching the newly printed program that scalded my palm. My new name blared back at me, stark and accusatory. The empty seat beside me in the family section screamed louder than a bullhorn untouched, like the milestones they'd overlooked. As I gazed at that void, something inside me shifted. They thought the stillness would expose me. Little did they know it was revealing their own flaws. I'd mastered the art of shrinking myself in our noise-filled Austin home, understanding that importance was reserved for those who could clamor the loudest. Oh, how I craved a voice amid the clatter. My mother's heels were the soundtrack of urgency whenever my brother Brendan demanded attention, while Vivian was showered with soft words and gentle touches. I, however, was the quiet ghost, cleaning my own messes and packing lunches while life swirled around me like a cartoon whirlwind. Even as a 12-year-old at Vivian's art show, I stood off to the side clutching a certificate for a regional science competition, invisible while my mother fussed over every other proud parent. As I smoothed the certificate in my pocket, the crinkle echoed loudly in my solitude, but no one noticed. Fast forward to my high school graduation, my family arrived fashionably late, missing my name in the headlines. As my classmates scrunched around searching for seats, I scanned the crowd, hoping for a familiar face. Just one empty chair in the family section, mine, of course. They were busy at a lake party and took a wrong turn into caffeine land, leaving me with nothing but a tattered program. College life at Rice was just an extension of my quiet existence. I sent text reminders weeks in advance for an award ceremony. Vivian sent a cute heart emoji. Brendan left me on read while my parents turned casual with a wheel try after a 3-day radio silence. When the day came, their absence was a well-practiced performance, while I resorted to takeout on the dorm steps, award still tucked in its untouched envelope. With every passing year, my voice faded into mere whispers. Each protest met with my mother's incessant "Don't be dramatic, Anna," while my father kept his gaze glued to his screen, nodding in static approval. My words dwindled. The frustration did, too. The last vivid reminder of my invisible struggle was during a research ceremony. 5 reserved seats without a single body. My hand smoothed the creased program endlessly, futilely pretending that the oblivion beside me didn't sting. My phone buzzed. Brendan's party photo filled the screen. "Wish you were here," the caption read, but I could hear the sarcasm dripping between the pixels. That was the epiphany, the moment I finally learned my role in this familial play, a backup character in a narrative that seemed to unfold without me. A quiet space lurked at the edge of my life, a realm unnoticed unless I chose to zip my lips. This shift didn't hit like lightning, it crept up on me, like pressure building behind a door tightly locked for ages. When that door finally cracked, it was on a day so mundane it dared to pretend it was completely normal, but I knew better. 8 months before my dissertation defense, I took the bold step of sending my family an announcement. Formal. Crisp. Sharp black ink inviting them to my moment of glory on April 22nd, 3 p.m. I mailed it to the old house in Austin, texted the details, and even blasted it into the family group chat. My mother responded after what felt like an eternity, a casual "so proud, sweetheart," that felt more like a brush-off than a celebration. Vivian sent a thumbs-up emoji and Brendan popped in with a nice. But hey, I thought, it's the thought that counts, right? As winter melted into spring, I reminded them week after week at our Sunday dinners. Mom's eyes never strayed from her phone, Dad mumbled something indistinct, Vivian shared updates on her kids' soccer schedules, and Brendan went on about his barbecue conquests. It was like tapping on a soundless window, hoping for a response that never came. I clung to hope, ticking off the time, 5 months, 3 months, 2 weeks. Each reminder felt like a futile effort, like I was screaming into a void. And then came February, when Brendan dropped his invitation for a barbecue bash on April 22nd from 1 to 6 p.m. I blinked at my screen, the pixels blurring from disbelief. When I called him, he seemed utterly baffled. "What time is your thing again?" he asked, clearly channeling a sitcom character. 3 o'clock, I replied, almost pleading. "People can do both," he chirped. "Right, because Stanford is just a hop, skip, and jump away, and family moments are an afterthought." My mom was next on the line, laughter echoing in the background. "I'm at Brendan's helping set up." "Total chaos," she chuckled. I hesitated, searching for the right words. "But tomorrow, 3 o'clock, right?" "We'll be there," she responded, distracted, rushing through our conversation. It hit me then, a heavy realization that they weren't confused or just busy, they were choosing something else, like always. The final nail hit home the day before my defense. Mom buzzed my phone over music and mayhem, asking where I was. "We're all at Brendan's," she chirped. I let silence stretch between us like an abyss, and in that moment, something within me shifted. I didn't shed any tears in that hallway. I didn't need to explain myself or call anyone back. Instead, I gathered my notes and stepped into the auditorium to defend 8 years of aspirations while 5 vital faces were missing. Once the applause echoed and I officially became Dr. Anna Brennan, a dull ache settled in my chest, a sensation so painfully familiar, it almost felt like home. That night, with messages piling up unattended, I found solace alone in my apartment. The blinds were half closed, the glow from my desk lamp warmed the piles of research, and the ceremony program lay in my hands. With a final smoothing of its center crease, I opened my laptop and created a folder titled Transition. No tears, no fanfare. Just a new chapter, starting with the essentials, unfurling the life they would no longer be part of. The satisfying whir of my printer filled the quiet of my apartment as I printed out the name change petition from the county website. Each section, requirements, necessary documents, guidelines, was highlighted with my trusty pen, and it felt like I was finally putting my life in order. My financial accounts required attention next, so I logged into each one, meticulously updating my contact info and saving everything to a shiny new folder titled Records. Who knew that a bit of organization could make me feel so accomplished? By midnight, my folder had taken on a life of its own, bursting with spreadsheets. I had one listing all my accounts tied to my old name and another mapping out the glorious transformation to the new name, Anna Morrison. It wasn't revenge I craved, oh no. It was a delightful sense of order that had escaped my family for far too long. With my newfound clarity, I drifted into slumber, feeling more in control than I had in ages. The following morning, I awoke before the sun had fully committed to rising. A cool breeze wafted through my apartment as I sipped my steaming coffee, its aroma wrapping around me like a warm hug. I took a moment to admire my name change petition one last time. Before slipping into my navy blouse and pressing those slacks, it was time to announce my new identity at the courthouse. As I drove, the building loomed ahead, pale and quiet, almost as if it were waiting for me. Inside, the clerk slid a mountain of forms towards me. "Fill these out," she instructed, not giving me a hint of the sense of empowerment washing over me. I settled into a chair bathed in sunlight and diligently filled each space with my crisp new name. Signature after signature, Anna Morrison felt right, a cozy fit. When I handed the papers back, the satisfying sound of that stamp hitting the top page was music to my ears. Processing would take weeks, but that was fine by me. I was ready for this fresh start. In the days that followed, I transitioned into my digital life, starting by updating my emails. I crafted a pristine new address that shouted independence, shunning anything that resembled the old me. I migrated research materials to a pristine cloud drive, letting the old one fade into oblivion. The only piece of nostalgia I held onto was a folder labeled Ruth, bursting with pictures and heartfelt letters from my grandmother. That connection felt sacred and unshakable. Her steady handwriting was a stark contrast to my trembling one. The physical change loomed large, however. I boxed everything up with the precision of a Tetris champion, from neatly stacked books to clothing folded in exact rows. As the last box was turned face down, I stood in the center of the empty living room, soaking up the quiet humming of the fridge and the distant buzz of city lights. My phone erupted with messages attempting to grasp at what they could never hold. I ignored them, leaving the past firmly in its corners. With my apartment officially locked, I stood for a moment, hand resting on the cool metal, embracing the stillness. 2 days on the road stretched before me, each mile dissolving ties that had grown thin. Stopping only for gas and caffeine boosts, I guided my car toward Portland, where the skies wept softly in welcome. Grey clouds mingled above, somehow comforting me, definitely not the punishment I often felt. My new apartment was small yet inviting, featuring a narrow balcony drenched in sunlight. As I sorted through boxes, I located my work essentials and resurfaced that cherished photo with my grandma from a long-ago birthday. With a smile, I pinned it above my desk, a perfect reminder of where I came from while I mapped out where I was going. The morning sun peeked through the office windows as I strolled into my new environmental consulting job, not a hint of nervousness lingering in my chest. The receptionist beamed, welcoming me like I was a long-lost celebrity returning home. My co-workers took turns introducing themselves, each one a refreshing breeze of kindness. Not a single question about family floated my way, nor any tedious comparisons to siblings. I settled into my desk, feeling a surprising steadiness envelop me, a quiet victory over my past. As the sun set and the workday faded, I got busy on my secret mission. Quietly, I tackled each task necessary to shed the remnants of my former life. I swapped out the name on my driver's license, updated my voter registration, and even reassigned emergency contacts. Each little task produced its own satisfying sounds: the swift tapping of keys, the all-important click of a mouse, and the little rip of an envelope. There was a rhythm to it all, not grand or dramatic, but satisfyingly neat and mine. After all the glamour of work, the nights became my personal time capsule. I'd sit at my desk with the window cracked for some cool Portland air, feeling the tension in my chest relax a notch with each form I slid into the completed pile. This time, I decided, I wouldn't fix what had been broken. It wasn't a grand declaration, more like a gentle prod to myself that boundaries were healthy. So many thoughts crisscrossed as I documented my fresh start in plain folders. Weeks rolled by, and one grey morning, it arrived, the official notification that I had awaited. My name change petition was approved. The sentence danced across the screen, a calm affirmation that a significant switch had flipped for me. I printed the confirmation, the warmth of the paper contrasting with the coolness of letting go. Each new document reflected my fresh start, the new bank cards, new ID, everything updated, and everything starting to reflect the person I was becoming. The old name, just a memory. Suddenly, the quiet I craved wasn't so quirky anymore. It transformed into a cacophony of ripples, the repercussions of my silence. The first one was an email from HR about my emergency contact attempting access. Yikes. My old number had perished, my old email demoted to the archives, and the system, perhaps with a sense of justice, flagged them unverified. I couldn't help but giggle at the cosmic irony. Talk about cutting ties. Then came another wave of voicemail from the apartment manager in Austin. They were trying to reach me for my forwarding address, courtesy of my worried family. Their desperate attempts fell flat when I simply never granted permission for them to confirm anything. A month later, in a fit of nostalgia, or was it a fleeting sense of regret, I powered on my old phone. My mother's frantic voice rang through my ears, and my heart did a little somersault. Frantic messages inundated my inbox, pleading to reconnect, but honestly, I owed them nothing, so I turned it off and returned it to its drawer, where it belonged. It was then the stars aligned, and life had its final twist. Great Aunt Ruth left this world, and I simply had to pay my respects. She was one of the few who truly saw me above all the noise. I realized this trip needed to be for her spirit rather than for my family. Besides, What's a family reunion without a little drama? I grabbed my bag knowing that, even among the chaos, my heart would find its connection, not with old ties demanding to reclaim me, but with the memory of someone who truly understood me. The chapel in Austin was a cozy little place, with polished wood that gleamed under the soft lights and an air thick with the sweet scent of lilies. Arriving early, I settled in near the aisle, clutching the printed program tightly. The name on it, Anna Morrison, felt oddly familiar to me, though my family looked at it like it was a riddle they couldn't quite solve. For me, it was a new chapter. For them, it was like I had stepped into an unfamiliar universe. They came in waves, my family, their reactions ranging from shock to complete disbelief. My mother froze mid-step, her eyes practically popping out of her head. "You changed your name," she stated flatly, as if I'd committed a cosmic crime. My father's jaw tightened like a vice, while Vivian blinked rapidly, as if I'd just told her I was an exotic alien. Brendan looked as if he'd just been socked in the gut, completely deflated. Their collective confusion was palpable. The name on the program was a source of tension, something they couldn't wrap their heads around. "You should have told us," Vivian hissed under her breath, eyes darting back and forth between me and the program like a tennis match. Rolling my eyes, I calmly replied, "You should have shown up." It took every ounce of my restraint to stay calm as the chapel attendant called for quiet. It was funny how they watched me more than the ceremony itself, glancing at me as if I held a secret they desperately needed to pry open. The service dragged on, my mother's gaze pinned on me, a combination of confusion and frustration clouding her features. It was that look of fear, the fear of someone who suddenly realizes they've been left off an invite to a gigantic party. After the last hymn, she followed me outside. "Anna, this isn't fair," she whispered, each word coated in that classic parental guilt. I leaned against my rental car, letting the soft wind play with the edges of my coat. "You chose a barbecue over my doctorate," I shot back, calm but firm. "You didn't forget, you prioritize." My voice was steady, and it felt empowering to finally speak my truth. "That's not true," she protested. "It is," I countered, relishing the clarity of it all. "Now the systems I exist in only recognize those who show up." "You weren't listed," I added, feeling a mix of sadness and liberation. There was no comeback for that. The weight of paperwork and digital records was unforgiving. Vivian came up next, her brow furrowed like someone solving a particularly tricky problem. "You didn't have to go this far," she said, but I shrugged, not feeling guilty in the slightest. "I didn't go far at all. I went where I was seen," I replied coolly. It was almost poetic, how far they felt from my reality. Brendan, ever the silent one, had simply shrunk into the background, choosing not to engage with the whole mess. I slid into my car and closed the door, watching the familiar faces blur through the windshield. It was like pressing fast forward on memories I no longer wished to be a part of. They couldn't follow me, not physically, not digitally, and certainly not emotionally. As I drove away, a strange mix of sadness and exhilaration swirled within me. I was untethered now, free to navigate my own life, and it felt liberating. The trappings of my old life fell away like discarded confetti, and with my new name, Anna Morrison, I felt a blossoming sense of peace. Portland embraced me like a cozy blanket on a chilly night, wrapping me in its calmness. For the first time in ages, I felt no need to rush. I had all the time in the world to enjoy the leisurely pace of my new existence. Days slipped into weeks, and before I knew it, I had woven myself seamlessly into this vibrant tapestry of a city. Mornings had transformed into a comforting ritual. I strolled to work beneath a canvas of low-grey skies, the weather matching my mood, cool yet inviting. My little kitchen buzzed with the familiar sounds of coffee brewing, warming my spirit like a hug in a cup. At my desk, engineering drafts sprawled out like a puzzle waiting to be solved, illuminated by the soft morning light that painted everything in a serene glow. It was a beautiful counterpoint to the chaos I had left behind. With each piece of correspondence that bore my name, I felt a reassuring sense of belonging. Anna Morrison wasn't just a name, It was a beacon guiding me forward into this vibrant life. Meetings buzzed with conversation, and for the first time, I was included without the burden of comparison. Colleagues sought my input, genuinely curious, as if I held the secret to the universe or at least the next big water reclamation project. And then there was Alex, who made my post-work coffee runs feel like mini adventures. He had this knack for listening that turned mundane chatter into delightful exchanges. No fake smiles or forced interest, he was genuinely invested in what I had to say. Our small cafe rendezvous quickly became my favorite part of the day, where our discussions flowed over steaming cups and beautiful pastries, sprinkled with laughter and shared moments of silence. Nighttime offered a different kind of solace. I'd wrap myself in a blanket on the balcony, watching the city pulse softly below. The rain painted delicate designs down the railing, a playful dance echoing my newfound calm. I'd sometimes revisit thoughts of my old life, especially that empty chair from my defense, an unwelcome yet familiar ghost. Strangely enough, the ache had faded, and it had transformed into a mere photograph I could tuck away, to be remembered but not felt. What truly amazed me was how the heaviness of resentment melted away. Hatred had no place in my new life, and I found that I wasn't even angry with my family any longer. They had been mere bystanders in my long journey to reclaim myself. The paperwork brought a clarity I had once thought impossible. This wasn't a wall, it was a line drawn in the sand, separating the life I had lived from the one I chose. In those gentle Oregon evenings, while the drizzle pitter-pattered around me, I realized I was home, not missing or searching anymore. I had finally arrived at a place where I understood the power of boundaries. No longer defined by others' perceptions or expectations, I stood strong, firmly planted in my own reality. Each time I wrote my name, it empowered me, proving that I had found myself amidst the chaos. The silence that followed was a comforting embrace, a promise of my own unyielding presence.